Merhabalar, 7 EXPER programına tekrar hoş geldiniz. Marka danışmanınız Özlem Tuskan olarak karşınızdayım. Bugün çok değişik bir konu ele alacağız. Virtual reality konuşuyor olacağız. Ve bugünkü konuğum BÖRGE BJELLAND. Hoş geldin BÖRGE.
Hoş bulduk.
BÖRGE yeni aslında virtual reality hizmetini marka ve pazarlama dünyasını sunacak şekilde bir şirket kurdu. Aslında çok deneyimli, kendisi de birazdan bahseder. Programımızı İngilizce sürdürmeye devam edeceğiz. Alt yazılarla da takip edebilirsiniz. BÖRGE, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you founded Glitch. You're a co-founder of Glitch, which is a virtual reality company based originally in Oslo, and then has now branched out to London and to Istanbul.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we have been doing business in Istanbul for more than 10 years in the creative industry, and in cooperation with Oslo, it's always been, we target the Scandinavian market and also the Turkish, but we mainly do our production in Istanbul. So now when we opened a new company, we use the same business model basically, where we have the production in Istanbul and we target the market in Scandinavia. New this time is that we also opened in London.
And so, I mean, virtual reality is literally sweeping the branding and marketing world at the moment as kind of the next reality, the next form of reality, and one of the most effective forms of building deep engagement with audiences when it comes to developing innovative, dynamic brand experiences. How is that being received in Turkey at the moment? I know it's very early days for you in Turkey, but virtual reality, where does it stand? Actually, before we even go there, perhaps explain to our viewers what virtual reality actually is. It's something that we hear a lot, but how much of them actually know what it entails?
Well, virtual reality, there's, as you said, there's a hype around the industry. Mainly because, big players have entered the market, like Google and Facebook are, heavily invested in this. So virtual reality is these wearable goggles where you can enter any kind of virtual world. That's the short version of what virtual reality is. And we shouldn't forget that there's also augmented reality. That's where you can also have parts of the real world in your experience. So I don't know if that's.
I mean, I've tried the Oculus Rift.
Yes.
Which is with the virtual reality glasses and headset rather. And when I did that, it was quite a phenomenal experience, and I actually was at the edge of a cliff. It was obviously virtual reality is from the gaming industry. It's essentially a form of a gaming platform.
What you're talking about is immersion, and that's a total new concept for virtual reality, or for brands to think about immersion that you can have in the Oculus Rift. And it's still early time. There's a lot of, the industry is struggling with motion sickness. There's other issues as well that we have to deal with. And no one knows, how are we going to navigate in this new medium, and how are we going to create stories? And I think that's the most, the biggest difference that we see in Glitch from coming from traditional storytelling is that if you're telling stories in VR, you're not really telling them, but you're living them, and that's a total different mindset. And it also requires a different mindset in the creative industry to think different about storytelling.
What kind of pressure does that, or what kind of implications does that have on the creative industry or on the brand owner when they are developing their brand experience design?
I think it's mainly moving away from the linear way of telling stories that we are used to, and in a way it should kind of be easy because it's we are living our lives as an experience every day, but putting that into marketing and branding and storytelling in VR is a little bit, it's totally new for us, but in a way we are there already. So it's using different tools and different mechanics to create those stories that we want to do. I mean, for brands, there's no better way to, you know, live, to make their audience live the story. I can make an example for you, maybe that's easier. Let's say find many brands that are selling their products through lifestyle experience. But they are picturing a lifestyle in a magazine or a TV ad, but you're not really there. You just picture, you know, the nice guy wearing his suit entering a club and all the girls are looking at him, you know. But you're not living it. In VR, you can actually be that guy. So when you enter the club, the girls are looking at you instead of, you know, the guy that you see on the picture, and that's a total different way of thinking storytelling, and it's a total different way of thinking branding. And it has a huge impact on people. If you see a story or see an ad, you actually store that at a different place in your brain as well. Whether if you live the same story, you will store that differently and you will remember it very differently.
Right, of course, of course. One is probably a lot more deeply, it's much more in the conscious, it probably places itself more in the conscious mind, whereas one is, you know, just being received, you know, it's just your receptors receiving that information. So in Oslo, what kinds of projects were you doing in Oslo?
In Oslo, we are connected to the biggest agencies, so we work very close with a company called Programa. They have offices all over Scandinavia, and we target the oil and offshore industry, the fish industry, of course, obviously.
So how does it work for the fishing industry?
No, I mean,
it's
the
not
fishing,
like one of the first industries that would come to mind.
So we are. No, we believe that fishing industry has a huge potential because it's about export and it's business to business. And I cannot picture any better way to tell the difference between Norwegian salmon and salmon from Peru than actually putting the person into a VR experience where you are in the middle of a fjord and you will see the fish jumping, you know, on the fish installation. So it's definitely have a great potential for that industry. Tourism, of course, as well, but that's more, you know, obvious maybe.
And I mean, what's the impact on the relationship between the consumer, the end user, and the brand and the product once somebody's gone through a virtual reality experience. Once they have lived it, obviously the engagement with that product or service becomes deeper.
It does, but it's still, you know, you have to remember that it's still early and people don't have VR headsets at home.
So how do we experience VR then if we don't have a headset?
Yeah, you have to create that scene. You have to create that VR scene. Of course,
scene meaning space.
Space, an area
that you can go and engage in.
That's you have to do that, and of course you can also use the cardboard and, you know, to spread it. But we see that in most cases it's a combination where you use mobile VR and cardboard and maybe stationary VR like HTC Vive or Oculus that you mentioned earlier.
Just explain that in a bit more detail.
The difference between the different. Well, the high-end VR like HTC Vive and Oculus, they have a much more sophisticated tracking system, so that they track you in all dimension, and the performance is much higher than a mobile VR experience because they have much more power. You use a big computer to run those experiences. So anything from the graphics to the interaction, everything is much, you know, better at the high-end part. But people don't have those at home, and we use them for installation. But, you know, when you leave the installation, you might want to take your VR experience and show it to your friends, and that's why we also combined it with mobile VR.
How does the mobile VR work?
It works the same way, but you have a limitation in terms of graphical performance.
You have a connection with the mobile device?
You know, today Samsung Gear is the biggest player on this market, and it's, you know, it's actually a cell phone inside their gear, and it has, you know, it performs very well, but it has limitations. So you might, you know, tell the story a little bit different when it comes to that then. And then if you're talking about the cardboard, it's the user's private cell phone that are in use, so you have even more limitations.
Mm-hmm.
That's mainly the differences.
And I mean, you would think that it's more the gamification, the, you know, online gaming, digital gaming audiences that would adopt VR. But you're talking about using it for energy companies, quite, you know, B2B audiences, the fishing industry. What is the kind of...
The gaming industry, it's... I'm sure they are going to adopt it, and it still runs on the gaming platform, so we have to use that platform when we're producing. But the gaming market is not going to go crazy just because they are available on VR. You know, people that like to play a game, they will continue to play a game, and they might use VR. But you know, from a market perspective, that's not really a big potential for us. We are not going to make VR games. We want VR to be adapted to other industries, like, you know, high-end luxury that I talked about, or the energy industry, technology industry. And right now, it's very connected to business more than anything else.
What are the investment levels like when you're, you know, comparing it with, say, advertising? If I was a brand owner and I was going to invest in advertising or, you know, this kind of brand experience, what's the level of investment, or what's the perception around the return on investment on that kind of spend?
I think
in Turkey, for example.
I think Turkey is not very different from the rest of Europe in this sense. Maybe it's not. I think, you know, especially London is moving very, very fast, and I think that today VR is not just the VR experience. It is the story that you manage to create around that experience, and that's very important because, okay, if you manage to do something great in VR, you have to capture that. You have to, you know, make a production out of it. And when you have that production, you'll be able to share that through social media or on your website. Like one of the very good first production that was done was the launch of the new Volvo XC90. And you know, it's limited how many people you can put into VR, even if you distribute it with the cardboard. But the amount of people that saw the story about their VR was enormous. Like I think it's more than 50,000 people in a short time. So it's a combination where you kind of use that VR experience that a few people can live, and then you tell that story.
And then you tell the story of the VR experience.
Yeah, and then you got really the true, unfiltered communications from people that are telling their experience with the brands, you know, not being wrapped or packed or polished. Right.
So you're catching those natural, instant moments of interaction, reactions to the brand story, and then, you know, retelling that experience.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, when you say story, what makes for a good story and what makes for a not so good story? Which brands for you, or what part of the branding process and the marketing process becomes more critical to be able to get that story right?
I'm not sure if I understand your questions right, but I think, you know, every brand has a great story to tell, and
do you think?
Yeah, I think so. If you go, you know what?
They do when they delve deep.
But they don't often, you know, my experience, they don't sell you that story. They sell a story which is maybe not, you know, the best story, or maybe it's not the true story. But everyone has a good story. If you can spend money on advertising, you have done something right, and you have, you know, a good story. So, I mean, that's no different in VR than in traditional media. It's just that we have a different way of playing out that story. Or,
right.
You know, to have the brands to meet their target group a different place, a different platform.
And how's it being received by advertisers in Turkey? The advertising industry, for example, agencies?
We work more close with the advertising industry in Scandinavian countries, and so I'm not the right person to say how it's done here. I think that it's on, well, I know it's on the agenda of on the Turkish industry as well. And I think that, you know, how Turkey kind of missed a little bit out on the smartphone revolution, a little bit slow on adapting, you know, there commercially. So I think they're very lean and hungry to use this for whatever it's worth. But right now I think that, you know, it's easy for us to operate in the Scandinavian countries because they're very eager at trying new technology first, and London as well. Less commercial risks maybe, I don't know, but Turkey is a different, it's a bigger, and maybe it's a little bit different.
I mean, you've got an enormous amount of experience in, you know, 3D animation, production, and content production, content design and production. Where does this sit for you when you look at the world of production and you look at where production is going in terms of content production? Where do you see virtual reality sitting in sort of 3 to 5 years in relation to other forms of
Well, isn't it all content marketing? You know, from my point of view, this is also content marketing, and it's very, you know, on the core of content marketing. And where, you know, we choose to produce in Turkey because it has much more talent. It's a huge country, and in Istanbul there's so many talents that can, you know, that are hungry to work in this industry.
It's a very young population.
Yeah, and we need the young people, because there's no senior VR developer. We need to have those young people, and that's also why we're connected to the VR first lab in Bahçeşehir University.
Is that an incubator?
Yes.
All right.
So
is that providing training for students who want to get into?
Not only students, everyone can come to.
So I could go there, and what could I do there? Experience it, or get involved in how it's produced?
Both.
Both.
Yes. So in that sense, Istanbul was the first one in Europe. So it's definitely a city that has its priorities sorted out in this VR world. And I'm sure the industry in terms of advertising will follow after. Right now we are a very small company, and we focus on the Scandinavian market and UK, but we also do projects in Turkey.
So is there more appetite from the youth to actually be involved in creating virtual reality than there is on the client side in making the investment to adopt it at the moment, would you say? It sounds
maybe
like that.
Yeah, but it sounds like this, and maybe it's because we've been operating in Turkey for so many years, and we have all our client base in Europe or in Scandinavia already. So for us, it's shorter to continue that way, and of course we're going to explore the Turkish market as well. But as I said, it's a very, very early state, and I think it's on the agency's agenda. It's just, you know, we haven't experienced.
And I've got one question about your brand, your company's name, Glitch. Where did that name come from? It's very,
many
it's
people
kind of positive and negative, but what's good about it is that it sticks in my mind, and I want to know more about the glitch.
We choose that name because not only because it comes from the, you know, gaming, you know, glitch is when you suddenly find yourself in a different, you skip 2 levels in a game and suddenly find yourself somewhere else, or if you look at more, you know, TV, you will see glitch when things are not working. But we believe in glitch. We believe that the unexpected and the things that we didn't always plan, and the things that we didn't direct it fully, there's value in that. So it's more like art by accident, actually.
Right.
That's why we like that word and use it.
I like that, art by accident. Okay, well, I hope the literal meaning of glitch doesn't occur at all. Thank you so much for joining me. That was fascinating, and I'm already cooking up some ideas for projects that we can do with brand series as clients, because there is this kind of need to differentiate more and more on a brand experience level, and we're getting clients who are very, proficient at developing strong brand stories and bring them to life through innovative brand experiences. But that level for innovation and need to differentiate on a brand experience level is becoming quite a common brief that we're hearing. So we shall be talking, no doubt. Okay, well, thanks very much for putting time aside for the show, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bu hafta bu kadar. Önümüzdeki hafta tekrar bir arada olacağız. Özlem Tuskan, 7 Exper programından. Asmadık.